in the depths below. Let's add custom ores to Minecraft. Alright, we find ourselves back in the tutorial once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding custom ore generation to Minecraft. Now, this has significantly changed between 1.18 and 1.19, but overall, we're still going to get through this, no worries. Now, the first thing we actually want to do is we want to update Forge. Now, that's quite important because otherwise we can only join a world once. So in my case, the newest version is 63 over here, but I will of course also link, you can just, Google Forge download and you can take a look at what the newest version is and then just change this to that. And then let's just load the Gradle changes over here. Once again, this can take anywhere from a few seconds up to a minute or so, depending on how fast your PC is. Now, it only takes 5 seconds because I've already done this and I've already downloaded everything that it needs to download. So that's why it went so fast. But overall, it can take anywhere from that and even a little longer. But after we've done this, we can now jump in. So what we're going to need in the tutorial mod package, we're going to right click, new package called world. And then inside there, we're going to right click again, new package called feature. And here we're going to need 3 different classes. The first one is going to be the ModConfiguredFeatures class, and this is going to be filled with some interesting stuff. So first of all, of course, what we're going to need is we're going to need a public static final deferred register of type configured feature. This is configured feature, this one right here, and then we need to add 2 question marks here in the angle brackets. So very confusing, but no worries at all. And then, of course, all of the code is, as always, available to you in the description below. Get a repository and individual gist as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this equal to deferred register.create. This is actually registry.configuredFeature registry, making sure that we choose the correct registry right here from Net Minecraft Core registry and not the one from Java. And then, of course, as always, tutorialmod.modid. And I already hear you scream when there is a deferred register. Of course, there is a public static void register method with an event bus called event bus, and then we're just going to call configured features register and passing in the event bus right here. Let's immediately call this over here because that's just going to make this a little bit nicer. Mod configured features.register, passing in the mod event bus. There we go. All right, now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to copy over each different field individually, and then I'm going to explain. The first field we'll copy over is going to be this. So this is probably going to look absolutely crazy to you, right? It's a supplier of a list of ore configuration target block states. So pretty crazy, but no worries at all. The general idea here is that what we're doing is we're basically making a list of what we can replace with our custom mods. So of course we want ore generation, meaning we want to spawn our zircon ore and, for example, our deep slate zircon ore, and we have to specify, okay, what can these custom blocks actually replace? So for example, the zircon ore should only spawn in stone, while the deep slate zircon ore should only spawn in deep slate. So that is the general idea of this. And once again, of course, all of the code available in the description below. Get a repository individual gist as well. Now, because this might look a little bit crazy, right, with a supplier and all of this. This is just because, we need this to load in the correct order and basically making it so supplier makes it so that it loads in the correct order. That's the general idea. So let's actually copy over the 2 other ones where actually a little bit of an error is going to come, but that's going to be totally fine because, of course, we still need to add both the endstone zircon ore as well as the netherrock zircon ore. Now, this should be absolutely no worries at all. You should have done this. Either you've already done this or it's going to be very easy. So I'm just going to sort of brush over this, right? It's just going to be adding 2 more blocks over here, and that's going to be pretty much all that we need to do. So nothing too crazy, but once again, all of this is also available in the description below. So if you've not added this, then this is going to be totally fine. But, at this point, adding some block states JSON files, adding some block model JSON files, all of that jazz, it's probably not going to be too crazy, right? They're just normal blocks, nothing too crazy over here, so all should be fine. Let's get the translation over here, and then also the model files and the item model files as well. And then you can see the textures are actually already added because I've added them in the block tutorial when I said that you can add those on your own time. And there we go. We now have the blocks done properly as well. And you can see for the nether ones, we actually have a, ore feature over here that we can use. But for the endstone, and this is the one thing that some people are basically confused by, we actually need to make a new block match test over here that matches with a endstone over here so that the endstone zircon ore actually replaces the endstone block. Now, those are things that we need to do, well, basically as preparation before we can register our proper, ores or our proper configured features. So we're going to register one and the other 2 will copy over. So we're going to make a public static final. And once again, of course, this is a registry object of a type configured feature. So this one right here. And then once again, passing in question mark over here. This is going to be the zircon underscore ore. And this is going to be equal to the configured features.register. Once again, giving it a name. We're just going to call it the zircon ore over here. And then a supplier of a new configured feature. It already suggests this to us. Feature.ore, very important over here. And then the second parameter is a new or configuration of overworld zircon ores.get, because we need to make the supplier a list over here because it requires a list. And then the second parameter is going to be, in this case, a 7, and that's going to be the vein size. So that is pretty much what this is. And I'm going to copy over the one for the end and the nether, and you can see, they pretty much look exactly the same. The only difference here is, and that's an important difference, we're taking a different list over here. So keep that in mind, that we're basically using a different list. That is actually very important, and that is pretty much all that we need to do here. When it comes to the numbers, I once again highly suggest just playing around with them a little bit. You can play around with them as much as you want. I highly recommend, though, not going below 3, because then sometimes your ores can be very sparse in the world, and that can, lead to them being very, very hard to find. So especially when you're just testing out, I recommend making just like 5x higher than you would normally do it. Maybe not 5x, but you know what I mean. So just making this a little bit higher than you would basically do it in the actual game. And then we want another class in the feature package, and that's going to be the ModPlacedFeatures class. And this is going to also have a deferred register. So there's going to be a public static final deferred register of type placed feature, of course called place_features, equal to, once again, the deferred register.create. And this one, once again, registry.placedFeature. There you go. This one, place feature registry, and then tutorialmod.modid. Once again, when you import the registry class, make sure that you are using the one from Net Minecraft Core and not the one from Java. And then a public static void register method with an event bus called event bus, and then just saying placed feature.register, passing in the event bus right there. Right, and then let's immediately call this right here. So we're immediately going to say ModPlacedFeatures.register, passing in the mod event bus right here, and that should be fine. Pretty much all that we need to do right there. Before I start copying over the fields, I actually want to add 3 helper methods over here. Now those are the ore placement, common ore placement, and rare ore placement. Now those 3 methods are actually from a vanilla class. This should be the ore placements class. There you go, from Net Minecraft Data World Gen Placement. And at the very bottom here, we have 3 static methods, private though. So I've just copied them over and used them here in my own class because it just makes it a little bit easier to use. So the first one that I'm going to copy over is going to be, of course, the place feature for the zircon ores. So this is going to be the overworld zircon ores. And you can see that actually we just need to call common ore placement over here. This is pretty much what we have. So you can see we're just calling register on the placed features deferred register once again, calling this a different name from the configured feature. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think you need to do this, but it's just a nice way to differentiate between the two. Then we're making a new placed feature, passing in our zircon ore configured feature that we've made with the .get holder and .get. That's actually very important. We need to do it like this. Then we are calling the common ore placement. Now the first parameter right here is actually the veins per chunk. So I've added this comment over here so we know what this means. This is the veins per chunk that are basically added here. And then we also need to supply a placement modifier. Now when it comes to the placement modifiers, there's actually quite a few of them. So here we're using triangle, but you can also use of and make actually a custom height provider, or you can also, we actually take a look at this. So when it comes to the height provider over here, if I click on this and press Ctrl H, you can see there's quite a few of them that you can actually use. Now already done is the triangle and the uniform. The triangle works in the following way. You basically supply it 2 points. In this case, we have -80 and +80, and then it's going to make a triangle in that shape. Maybe you've seen the ore distribution chart in the past. So that basically is sort of how it works, that between the two is then the highest distribution, and then the closer you get to the 2 points, then the lower the distribution or the less of those ores will spawn. Right, now when it comes to the end and the nether one, this is actually pretty much the same thing. So you can see we're just also using the common ore placement, and that is pretty much it. Now when it comes to the vertical anchor, you actually can call different methods over here. So you can do the above bottom, absolute below top. This is one thing where I'm not 100% sure what the differences here are. I've use all 3 of them, and all 3 of them have been fine. Usually, though, some people have said that the absolute one is probably better to use, but once again, those have gotten me results as well, and yeah, that pretty much is all that. Now, this is actually everything that has to do with the code. However, we still need to add JSON files, so that's going to happen in the data folder in your tutorial mod or ModID folder, and then you're going to right-click new directory called Forge. Now, it's very important that the directory is added into your folder and not under data Forge. It has to be under data, your ModID, then Forge. And then we also need to add another directory in here, and that's going to be called the Biome_Modifier. There you go. Make sure that this is written correctly, and then everything should work. Let's make a new JSON file over here. That's going to be the add_zircon_or.json. And the contents of this are actually not too crazy. So overall, we need 4 fields. We need a type field. That's going to be forge::add_features. Then we're going to need one that is the biome. So this basically specifies which biomes there are going to be where this feature is added to. Now we're going to choose Minecraft is_overworld because we want this to spawn in every overworld biome. Once again, you can then just change this, and I believe you should also be able to make this a list, so then you can specify where this spawns. Here we are specifying which features we want to spawn. So in this case, we want tutorial mod::zircon_or_placed will spawn. And then this is going to be the step, and that's going to be the underground_ores. Now, the feature right here, the zircon or placed, is of course this name right here, so those names have to match. This is just a tag in this case. This is specified by Forge, so this should be in the... So the type over here, we can actually take a look at the Biome modifiers, so just click Shift twice, put in Biome modifiers, and then we can take a look at, you know, the different phases where we can basically, which we can use. Now, usually you want to add features, that's going to be the #1 priority over here. You know, modifying features or changing or removing features, usually not something I advocate for, especially for beginners. I would rather not that you do that. And then when it comes to the underground ores, we can actually take a look at the generation step class over here. So this one right here, we can see the different generation steps that we can take, and we are of course using underground ores because we want to add underground ores. I'm going to add the other 2 JSON files, and then what we should see is this should be totally fine and work. Right, and after having added all of this, let's see if it works. All right, so what I highly recommend is making a new world here. So let's just create a new world, and then once that is done, this should take a little bit longer. You can see validating selected data packs. That is absolutely normal. If you get to this screen, then everything is working fine. You might also get something like data packs invalid. Then you might have a typo in one of your JSON files. So I highly recommend checking those out again. Now this is going to be ore generation. So let's just join the world. You will also get this warning experimental features over here. We can just say yes, and then the world will generate, and then we can see if our ores finally spawn. All right, we found ourselves in Minecraft again, and let's just see. I think I've already spotted it. Right there is some zircon ore. So there we go. We can see that it definitely spawns in the overworld. So let's just also take a look at the Nether. All right, so here we are in the end, and we can actually find some of the endstone ore over here. And the crazy thing is that the nether ore actually would also want to spawn in the end. However, of course, it can't because there is no netherrack here, because there actually is a typo in the JSON file. Let's actually fix that. And then we can also see the proper ore in the nether, but you can already see, of course, here it's working, so everything should be totally fine. All right, and here we are. The biome that was specified in the nether zircon ore is the end, which of course is not correct. This should be is nether, and then it should also spawn in the nether. I'm so confident that we're going to try this again. All right, so we find ourselves back in the nether, and there we go. We actually have found some zircon ore here. Okay, we can't really look at it, but there we go. We have found it. So all 3 different dimensions have their ores added, so everything working totally fine. And as always, all of the code as well as the JSON files will be available to you in the description below, GitHub repository or individual just as well. But that concludes this tutorial right here. Hope you found this useful and you learned something new, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. So, yeah.